welcome to another episode of At Witt's End. Thank you for joining us. And I'm Ken. That's my son Carson. He's in Austria. I'm in the west coast of the U.S.
How many
and
miles away?
6,000. I was trying to change
Oh,
that up so people don't go,
I
6,000,
think
9 hour
it's
difference.
I think it's
So,
ingrained now. You have to do
okay,
it.
it's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're watching American football games at what, 3 a.m., or at least the college games, and I'm watching them during normal prime time. So, topic today is a little different. Carson's been to a few comedy shows in Austria, and I kind of wanted to get his take on some of them because I'm curious. Uh, we've been to a few concerts. We went in Europe, and I go to a lot of concerts here in the United States, but musical. Comedy is such a cultural thing that I don't know how somebody lands jokes how an American comic lands jokes in Europe, unless it's self-deprecating or maybe making fun of the culture, and particularly with, I would say, the crisis in comedy these days, with political correctness, comedians being banned, and the printer's going off.
Printer interruption
Yeah.
is done. Okay, so
All right.
it's all right. All
I
right.
apologize. The studio printer went off.
Yeah, we're
So,
on a low budget here, so there's a printer in our studios.
yeah. Oh, which reminds me, real quick, folks. A couple of you have asked. That clock will never change. It's always going to be at that time. I do have several clocks. They are from Europe, from Austria specifically, but there are no craftsmen in the United States. Very few, I should say, that can work on these type of clocks. And the ones I have found, it's pricey. I want them to come out to the house. The other thing is, we don't live in Texas, but Bucky's is, for those people in Europe and maybe the northern part or eastern part of the United States, Bucky's is a major C store. There's not many of them,
What
but
is the C store?
yeah, convenience store. Good point, Carson. For those of you in Europe, um, everything's big in Texas, and this convenience store chain is gigantic. I want to say, what, 30 pumps, pumping gas
Yeah,
maybe, but
the
the
convenience store part of it is the size of a grocery store.
easily, but you can furnish your apartment and buy the best beef jerky and get some great brisket, great burrito. The food's phenomenal. So if you're traveling through Texas, stop and get gas at a Bucky's, but give yourself a couple hours maybe.
Yeah, they have what's actually famous in or extremely popular in England, but Bucky's makes a fantastic version of it. A sausage
Sausage?
roll.
Oh,
Yeah, a sausage
bangers?
roll.
Okay.
Yeah, and England they're a staple. And
Yeah.
in the US outside of Bucky's they're kind of, I mean there's variations of them, but they're not like true, true sausage rolls, but at Bucky's they are a sausage roll.
Yeah.
They're
And the
very
other thing
good.
I've noticed, though, they don't really have them in Europe, but koozies, but the metal coffee, cold beverage cups, again, it's gigantic, but it keeps things. Well, I haven't seen them in Europe. I'm sorry. It's just compared to the
I mean,
States.
they definitely have. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not like $40 like they are in the states.
Well, that's
They're,
for the
you
best
know,
of the best. So I don't want to
I
give them
mean,
free advertisement until they send me one for free. But that kind of got off topic. But like I said earlier, I kind of wanted to look into the differences and maybe talk about comedians between Europe and specifically Austria and the United States. We just had Carson pointing out there was a comedy at our local casino here, outdoor amphitheater. I did not go. I'm not really into comedians outside in big venues or even inside in big venues. I do like the laughs, the smaller clubs, the comedy clubs, and there's some famous ones. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there's been a lot of controversy with comedians recently on politically correctness and being banned from campus. Comedy was always meant to kind of offend and laugh at yourself, but I'm always curious how an American or English speaking comedian lands jokes in areas such as Austria or even the Czech Republic or Hungary or Britain for that matter. Um, Carson, you just went to a large comedy show concert. Jimmy Carr which when you first said you were going, oh, I don't even know who that is. But then I looked him up, and I do know who he is. Very funny. I think very
Legend.
offensive to some.
Oh yeah, legend.
So
I love
yeah.
Jimmy Carr. He's a
Oh, is
legend.
that what you were waving? He's a legend.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Praise
He's too new to be
praise
a
Jimmy Carr.
yeah. But I would think some people find him offensive, and but that's what's
Well,
great about
so
comedy. It's supposed to be offensive.
yeah, so
I,
that is actually the main point of his current kind of comedy show, his tour.
what's his tour
The
called?
way he's speaking.
Do you remember?
Um,
It's not a big
what
deal.
is?
Don't worry. I was just
No,
curious.
it's I had to look it up now and remember it. I think it's terribly funny. Actually, is what it's
Okay.
called.
So he's British.
Yeah, terribly funny.
Okay.
But
Kind of looks
yeah,
like an
he's
uptight
British.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, wears a suit
Yeah,
all the
all the
time, like
time.
a
I've never,
multi-piece suit. He
even on
only
talk
wears a suit.
shows, when he's doing talk
Yeah,
shows, I've noticed he's always wearing a suit.
he hosts a lot of talk shows too, and that's I think really where he got started.
So I
But
assume he's
yeah, his
probably a TV star in Britain.
yeah, well, he hosts like I'm pretty sure like British TV, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, audience. But British TV has a lot of like talk slash game shows that aren't really game shows.
Hmm.
But it's just a bunch of comedians that play kind of games for laughs. Like Taskmaster is one of them that I laugh at a lot. But Jimmy Carr has hosted a number of these shows, as well as been on like as a comedian on these shows. And I'm pretty sure there's a term for this genre of British television, but I don't know what it is.
Oh,
Um, but absolutely funny. I mean, he's been on a legend on British television. I think
so was he in Vienna
he's
or Linz?
super. He was in Vienna. Yeah, so he had two shows in Austria on his current world tour. I saw him in Vienna at the Marx Theater. That also had a sub theater. It was what is the famous Shakespeare theater in
Oh, the
the
round
Circle Theater.
circle theater. Yeah,
Is it the Circle Theater? Yeah, it's like a remake of the
yeah,
Circle Theater in
in
Vienna,
modern.
this old like warehouse. So that's really cool venue. But he also had a show in Graz, southern Austria,
So
and
was the show sold out?
yeah, it was sold out.
Both.
Yeah,
Okay.
completely packed. And it so for that and for all the shows I've been to, like, so I've been to all English speaking shows, um, and for like Jimmy Carr and all of them, they're obviously primarily Austrians there that are English speaking, but they do have a pretty, depending on who's speaking or who's there and like how well they're known, could be a very international audience, could be mostly Austrians.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Carr had a lot of international people, but I think he's so globally appealing that there's just fans of his from every country, and so you get just like the Austrian majority at his show, whereas like some of the smaller comedy shows I've been to have been very diverse in terms of their the people that are attending.
Yeah. So did you laugh the same spots that everybody else laughed, and vice versa?
Yeah, there was so the majority of them, yeah, for sure. Because a lot of his show was about the kind of concept you were referencing earlier, the canceling and like being overly offensive. Like
Yeah.
that's his shtick right now. And he's hardcore into that. He does a lot of jokes about like self-deprecating about him and his girlfriend or about his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Um, and he does a lot of jokes like British jokes. There were some points where I think I laughed because it was more of an English
Mm-hmm.
like a native English speaking kind of joke, and that people from like Austria wouldn't understand.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Or
Is I
like,
don't understand that.
but yeah, there was a couple of them like terms you would not hear of outside of like those like outside of England or America. Um,
So did he
but
stop if a joke didn't land and say didn't get that or explain
so
it
the
or why it was funny?
Yeah, so the couple times it did happen, he didn't necessarily stop because people did laugh because there were a lot of like English people there,
Yeah. Okay.
um, and Americans and international audience. So people did laugh, but it didn't hit as hard as like the ones that Austrian people also got fully. And when he did that, he would be like Oh, I see. You guys don't quite understand. He would kind of backtrack and try
Pointed
and
out.
relate it
Okay.
back. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And he did make like I appreciate he did make a joke about St. Pölten, which is a town outside of Vienna, kind of like
Hmm.
I think it's like 40 minutes or so away from Vienna. And he made like they're the like um like hillbilly or like I
Yeah.
don't know exactly, but like the hillbilly town of
St. Polton,
like
which I
outside of
yeah,
Vienna kind of thing,
which I guess
the town in the country.
Wieners make fun of anybody outside of Vienna, so I can kind of
Yeah, yeah,
understand that.
yeah. Vienna people definitely have a opinion about the rest of Austria
Yeah,
as a
but
whole.
I don't think in Europe. I think it's more of a, UK and an American thing. The whole cancel culture thing. I mean, like Seinfeld, probably America's most famous comedian because of the TV show. Um, he is no longer doing college campus tours anymore because of the cancel culture that's out there, people protesting and banning. And I look
I
at
didn't know
Jimmy
that.
Carr kind of in the same way that the comedians I grew up with that were huge at the time and filled stadiums like Madison Square Garden. A guy you may not be Andrew Dice Clay, super offensive.
Heard that.
He would not be able to do anything these days. And
Yeah,
as you
I
know, I
think
mean,
it's
a friend of mine that you've seen, Carl LeBeau, who's since passed away. Rest in peace, Carl. Uh, Great comedian, was one of the Outlaws of Comedy founders of that with Sam Kinison. Uh, so we got to meet Sam and Carl when they were on tour many years ago, and he had a residency in Vegas. But a lot of his comedy and Sam Kinison's comedy would not work today on a modern college campus in the U.S. or Britain, for that matter, because people can't make fun of themselves anymore.
yeah. I think it's very cultural too. British comedy is very offensive and hit you in the gut, and it's just like
More
it's
so than
like
U.S.
you
comedy.
take. Oh yeah, yeah, way more in my opinion, and I think that's just British people in general. Like
Mm,
British
I
people in
beg to
general
differ.
will make fun of their friends like hardcore and what is the term I'm looking for? They'll banter back and forth really hard. Like banter is British culture. Like
Oh,
that
yeah, they'll
is
pick somebody out of the audience and make fun of them, or their
yeah,
wives, or
just
their girlfriends,
but
or husbands.
bantering
Yeah.
is so British and it's not American to that level.
Mm,
Like British people take it to another level. And
I don't
but
know.
and I think British people can give and take it much better than Americans can in
Yeah,
general.
I wouldn't agree with
I
that. I
I
just don't see it.
I think British people like give their friends a lot of crap and they take a lot of crap, but it's part of their culture. They just know it. Like you can just make fun of each other, and
Yeah,
it's just it is what it is. And so I think that's where like British comedy, and that's why Jimmy Carr is like how he is. Um, like they're self-deprecating and the banter and all that. Like it's that style is it's a British style.
yeah, but I mean, I'm
Whereas like American
obviously,
comedy is different.
yeah, I can't say I would know any major British comedians that I grew up with. I mean, it's easy for me to say Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy. I mean, you're talking about guys that filled stadium. Like I said, Andrew Dice Clay.
But these
Um,
these are these are guys that aren't performing. That was the
Anymore.
past generation.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'm saying. Well, yeah, who's the guy
I'm
that?
talking more modern, I guess, because I didn't grow up with
Yeah,
guys
who's
like
the
that.
short comedian
Kevin
in the
Hart
movie? Kevin Hart. I mean,
sells
he's
out
kind of that
stadiums,
way. He does do stadiums. He wears the leather outfits like Eddie Murphy did. He's funny, but he's
but
doing
his
comedy.
style of comedy is like lifestyle and stuff. Like he talks
Yeah.
about his kids are so stuck up and stuff like that, and he's very
Well, that's
lifestyle in his comedy. He's not like
pretty edgy
you
and
know
dirty, and I mean, would he? Is he famous in Europe with people in Aus? I
he's
assume.
famous around the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just like The Rock. They're both internationally famous.
Did
Everyone
you
knows
say The
who they
Rock?
are. Yeah,
Comedian more than an actor, huh?
no, The Rock. I
Yeah.
mean, comedian wise, like The Rock is just an international
Okay, so
celebrity.
who would you think is America's number one comedian, past and present? That's hard to
I
say.
don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Past wise, it's hard to say because I don't know. I couldn't. I wasn't around for like. I think what was the golden age of comedy, was
I think the
like,
70s.
yeah, in like the Richard Pryor age of comedy.
Yeah, I would
Like
agree with
so,
that.
I think
Eddie
it's. I
Murphy
think
came
there's
up
like
then, Bill
three
Cosby.
three or four generations in here, and I think there's like the Richard Pryor era. There's like
Well, I
Eddie
would actually go
Murphy and
back.
Seinfeld,
I'd go
and
back
then
even
there's like Kevin
further.
Hart
Yeah, but I'd even go
and
back further.
and
There was the safe, based on the societal norms at the time, comedians like the Don Rickles was very edgy for his time because he was insulting to a
yeah.
crowd, and he still is. God, is he still alive? Funny as hell because he would self-deprecate, pick
Don
on people in
Rickles,
the
I
crowd.
don't think he is.
Oh, and then the Bob Hopes of the world and female comedians like Phyllis Diller and Carol Burnett, and then they had TV shows. Then you go to the '70s, which came of age with albums. Where like Richard Pryor had an album. Everybody points to who's the guy? George Carlin and his whatever 13 Dirty Words. I was never a big George Carlin fan, but I mean, he couldn't perform today. People would be out protesting. And then there's, levels of comedians. People consider Johnny Carson a comedian. I consider him a talk show
Yeah,
host. And
yeah.
then you get into the '90s, and I guess that's when Kevin Hart would have come up. And I'm trying to think of somebody. Oh,
No,
Seinfeld.
Kevin Hart was 2000. So the 90s, I think more of like Seinfeld, Eddie Murphy,
Oh, Jeff
um,
Foxworthy, the country guy.
Jeff Foxworthy,
D.L.
Bernie Mac,
Hughley,
Bernie
Bernie
Mac,
Mac. Oh,
D.L.
I forgot about him.
Hughley.
Yeah.
Those are the guys I think of like the 90s, maybe early 2000s. And then when you
Oh, we're
get more
forgetting
modern age,
one of
who?
the greatest current and past comedians, Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, so
Very
I was gonna say
controversial.
Chappelle is 2000s. I think
Okay.
him and so different styles, but him and Kevin Hart, I think define current era of like
Yeah,
the
but Dave
best.
Chappelle's so much more edgy,
Yeah, yeah, for
and
sure, for
yeah,
sure, for sure.
and he
And
doesn't
but
give a
I think
shit.
they
He smokes on
define.
stage. I love that, and he insults
Yeah,
old white
he
guys, and I can
he
laugh at
insults
that.
everyone, and everyone. I think him and Kevin Hart, because I think Kevin Hart, although he may have like some sexual jokes and stuff, and may have some triple X jokes, but
Yeah,
I think he is more mainstream comedy, and obviously with his acting roles, it makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
But Dave Chappelle is like the true comic. Like Dave Chappelle and Kevin Hart are at the top. I think Dave Chappelle is a better comic, but
yeah. I
Kevin
think
Hart
Dave
is just a
Chappelle,
funny person.
he crosses so many different. He could be a comedian in the '70s, '80s, '90s, and 2000s. Now again, he'd be funny at all those times. And the fact that he is not concerned about the cancel culture, the repercussions, because he's so popular. He's the one. He's one of the guys I would love to meet and go have a beer with or visit him on his. I think it's in Ohio. He has a farm.
On your dinner event with the queen that you mentioned last time.
Yeah, yeah. I would.
The other
Dave
one
Chappelle.
that you think British comedy too, modern British comedy, Louis C.K.
Louis C.K.'s British.
Isn't Louis C.K. British?
Nah, he's a U.S. Yeah, look it up real quick. You got actually one guy I consider a
No,
great
he's
comedian.
American. Who am I thinking is British? Not Louis C.K. Then
Bill Burr's
there's
not
someone
British.
else.
I think
Yeah,
he's
Bill
out
Burr
there.
is another modern.
Here's one for you that maybe
There's
you
someone I'm
met.
trying to think of.
He was actually at a basketball game sitting
Ricky
behind me.
Gervais. God, Ricky
Oh yeah,
Gervais, not Louis C.K.
he's
Ricky
wonderful.
Gervais he's who I think is epitomizes British comedy like Jimmy Carr does.
Yeah, and
Like they're very brash.
he gives it to both sides of the spectrums the same, and that's what upsets a lot of people. I think he's hilarious. So I love the awards show he did where he basically called out Hollywood. I think he
That's
made
a class.
himself a
That's a
hero.
classic.
It is classic. But another guy I think is phenomenal, and Santa Barbara guy, a guy I'd love to go have a cocktail with, is Dennis Miller. Considered more of a talk show host, Saturday Night Live guy. I don't think ever got the true respect that he should have was on ESPN Monday Night Football, but probably one of the most intelligent guys. And I don't agree with him on a lot of his stuff, but hilarious, just down to earth. And he was at a Gaucho basketball game many years ago, and I sat in front of him, and I didn't turn around and say, "Hey, Dennis, can I have a picture?" Anything like that. I just listened to what he was saying. I was
Or
eavesdropping.
what are you gonna take a picture with back then?
Oh, back then, you're right.
Let's be honest.
My
That wasn't in your
Kodak
mind.
my Kodak disposable camera that I bought at the
Yeah,
C
yeah,
store.
yeah, yeah, okay.
So, but
But yeah,
yeah, I mean,
so I
comedy is
think
just
it
something that's
yeah, I think that it's definitely into a different generation now. I think you have like the generation you were a like in your 20s and grew up with. There's a generation of like the 90s, like comics and that era, the Seinfeld and um era of comics, and then there's the current kind of modern era of comedy. Um,
guy just thought of talking about modern. I want to see if you know a guy named Andrew Schultz. I think.
Schultz, dude,
Have you
dude's
heard of him?
hilarious. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. Follow
But
him
he doesn't have any
everywhere.
shows or anything. I saw him
Yeah, he does. He
on
has he
Netflix.
does. Not
Oh,
on I don't know on
he's
Netflix. He sells his own. He has his like on his website. You can buy a show.
so
Dude's
basically the
hilarious.
mainstream streaming services are not giving him access because he would.
No,
I'd watch his show in a
no, I
second.
don't think he I don't think he wanted to. He has a podcast too. I listen to his podcast.
Oh, you do?
His podcast is hilarious. Andrew Schultz is a modern comic, and he is one of the funniest. And he's grown
I
his influence on social media
That's where I
mostly.
saw him on social media. So I looked up his concert tour because I would go see him sold out
Oh
everywhere.
yeah,
And I'm going.
dude's
I've never
killing
heard of
it.
this guy, and I
Yeah,
love him.
Andrew Schultz. So listen to his podcast. He has a podcast with his friends, and he's always on other people's
Wait,
podcasts. He's
listen
on
to his
Rogan's
podcast,
podcast.
then listen to ours.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you to listen to his podcast,
Oh, I
but
will. Yeah.
also the audience. But he's
How
been
about
on
this?
Joe Rogan a bunch as well. And but Andrew Schultz, he kills it on TikTok. People reshare his videos. His podcasts are great. He goes on other people's podcasts. He has
And he's
his own
super
comedy
offensive,
special,
but he's funny as hell.
but he's
And I
modern in
think
like what he does too.
but he's well liked by all races that I've seen. I mean, you look at the crowd that attends his
Dude makes
show,
fun of everyone.
super diverse and funny as hell. So I'm glad to see
Yeah,
that what I think of comedy from like the 70s and 80s is still alive with guys like Andrew, and he's killing it. Shout out to him.
yeah. Andrew Schultz is a great comic, but I wanted to get back to I guess what I've seen. So I've seen a couple shows here in Austria, and that aren't at the level of Jimmy Carr. Smaller comics that are doing their own thing, trying to get up in the world. And one of them actually, I started seeing his videos on TikTok, and that's why I attended his show. His name is Thomas Vamos, I think. Thomas.
Wait,
Um,
Thomas Vamos?
I don't
That's
know how to
Spanish for
pronounce
Thomas.
his.
Get out of here.
I don't know. Thomas Tomas Tomas Tamas Vamos is his last name. But you say Spanish Vamos Vamos, but
Vámonos.
he's
Yeah.
he is a South African Hungarian
Wow.
of origin. He
Living in
lives
Wien
in Vienna and does comedy in Vienna. He
in
speaks
English.
English. Yeah, he does it all in English. But what I love about him, so I found him on TikTok, and I thought he was great because he makes regional jokes about, um, Europe and Central Europe and Eastern Europe and everything. Makes fun of like the Baltics and stuff, and he's diverse. Like he's South African and Hungarian. What a wild combo, right? He's funny and he has great interactions with the crowd. He
What
does like he gets to
ethnicity is
know
he?
his Hungarian and South African.
But is he like
He's like a
Caucasian,
white,
black,
yeah, he's like
white
white
guy?
guy
Okay.
looking. Yeah, yeah, he's not black. Um, but he does a great interaction with. When I saw him, he did. It was the first thing he was first on stage to kind of open up the crowd, but also he's just chit chatting, making fun of the crowd, and like, hey, what do you do? Where are you from? And like he'll crack jokes about like all the Romanian. He'll make a Romanian joke. He'll make Croatian joke, he'll make a Hungarian joke, make a German Polish joke. Like he cracks jokes about the regional stuff and the interplay between all the countries here. Because although like the Baltic area may be a small area geographically, there's so many different cultures and they're all
Yeah,
very different.
yeah.
And there's so much like there's so much about each one. Like God, what
Well,
was
he's from two very controversial countries, South Africa
yeah,
and
he's
Hungary.
I mean his descent is very interesting, but he does a great job with the audience, and I think that's what attracted me most. And his TikTok has a lot of videos that he goes through or in posts from his shows. And I'm pretty sure he
What
actually just hosted a show in or a festival, an English comedy and music festival in Vienna this past weekend. Um,
I wonder if he's ever played the States and how he'd go over.
I don't know. It'd be. I think you do. Uh, I don't think you do as well because Americans won't know anything about like
Yeah,
Albania or Bosnia and
Romania,
Herzegovina or
Romania, and
Romania or
yeah,
Hungary.
that's
Like
what
they
I'm
won't know
wondering if,
anything.
unless he's traveled the U.S. and could make fun of Northerners, Southerners, San Fernando Valley girls, that kind of thing. I don't know if his comedy would land here. So
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that like just because like they don't know like people in America don't wouldn't know like what he's talking about because the general public in America probably doesn't know where Bulgaria is like or why
I don't
Romanians
know where Hungary is or
across
Romania or
Romanians not
Vienna.
living in Romania is funny.
Yeah.
Like there's it's stuff like that. Like he just it wouldn't come across as well. I'm trying to find. There's another guy I follow on TikTok who's very funny.
What
There's actually
about
two more
do you
actually that I
like,
follow.
have you heard of Sebastian Maniscalco? He's like Seinfeld's good friend. So he's more mainstream, I think, but I'd never heard of him until about a year ago.
No, I don't. I don't recognize the name. There's another guy that does local like Germany, Poland,
Well, who are you
Austria.
going to see in a couple of weeks
Just some. I don't even know who they are. They're
in
playing at a
Linz?
local
Okay.
pub here in Linz, but they're Irish. Playing at the Chelsea Irish pub here.
Oh, they are?
Um,
I
yeah,
could see
yeah.
that would be funny just because the Irish have such a cultural
Comedic
drinking culture, I
values
guess.
way up high in Ireland.
Yeah.
I can't find the guy I'm thinking of, but there's two others I noticed on here that I wanted to mention. And I'll finish off this discussion. I think it's there's so much comedic value in the cultural interplay in Europe, like the classic like Romanians not living in Romania and like doing jobs elsewhere. Um,
Well,
the uh,
before we end,
the the Bosnia and Serbia fighting
yeah,
each other,
or
Bosnia and
Ukraine right
Kosovo.
now, Ukraine, Russia, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, all that kind of stuff, like making fun of a Russian in the crowd. Like, Thomas had one of those videos on his TikTok. There's like a Russian gal, and he's like making fun of her, and I was like, it's just like
well,
it hits because there's so many different cultural things you can hit on.
yeah, and the Russians with money have, most of them are in other European cities, and Vienna
Yeah,
happens to
yeah.
be one of the locations for a lot of Russian oligarchs, I guess is the best way to put it. But here's a question for you, because whenever you talk about comedy in the States, and I'll talk about the great comedians, and somebody say, well, you don't like female comedians. And do you see any female comedians on the European comedy tours?
Never seen, never
Yeah,
seen one. Yeah, not even
yeah, I haven't
advertised at
either.
all. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually I didn't realize that. But yeah, I've never seen one like
Well, it's kind of funny because
advertised.
everybody in the United States thinks of Europe as so progressive, and in reality, it's not. They're not. I mean,
Very much depends on the
I don't
location. You
hear any
can't you can't
controversy.
generalize. You can't
Yeah, I know you
generalize
can't.
Europe. Yeah, like it's
But
very
we
dependent
could
on
talk
location.
about comedians and have an audience from Europe and the United States, and we'll get somebody in the United States criticizing us for not talking about the great female comics, whether it be a Tina Fey or going back to like a Phyllis Diller or Lucille Ball. But in Europe, it wouldn't even be a topic. As long as you're funny, I think they would accept you.
Yeah,
So
yeah. There's another guy that I think is very funny. he's always with he's done shows with Andrew Schultz before, like podcasts and stuff. But he's Korean. Bobby Lee is like he's
Uh,
on social media all the time. He has a
the only one I know
podcast.
is what's his name, Joe Coy,
I
Joey
don't
Coy, or
know.
something like that.
But Bobby Lee is very funny, so I suggest you look it up. And another one that a different culture, a different English speaking culture that has a lot of translation to like I can relate to his jokes because it's a completely different culture and place, but the jokes still hit because they're still relevant to the US. Um Australian comics. Luke,
Yeah, I can
there's
see
this guy
that.
on TikTok, Luke Kidgel. He gets a
Never
ton of
heard of him.
views and likes and everything.
Send
He's
me a
a
link.
young, he's like 20 something, and doing Australia, but there's a lot of similarities because like you have like the city, like Melbourne or Sydney, the
Yeah,
city folk in Australia, and then you have like the country folk, and like he'll do shows making fun of like, oh, we're in this small town that's um you know you're working at a freaking um uh doing like cow work or something or working with the farm animals or something, like, but like he made jokes about like the like northeast of America, this all city folk versus all the country folk in the southeast, even though it's like Australian version. It's super funny. Like it's relatable, even though it's Australian. He makes joke about like I saw there's a one where this like he was interacting with the audience and someone was talking about working at McDonald's and there's jokes about Mickey's, what they call
Mickey
McDonald's
D,
in the
Mickey's,
in
yeah,
oh Mackey's.
Mackey's. That's right.
Yeah, and another one probably I think his like biggest vid. He got interrupted by a girl with Tourette's and he didn't know how to understand what was happening until she said, "Oh, I have Tourette's," and he just goes on with it, and it happens a bunch. And then he's had
Did
a
he
couple
make
of
fun of
shows.
her?
No, he didn't understand what she said,
What was
what was
going on?
happening. Like he was like, "What was that noise?" Basically, and then she like explained it, and he's had like a couple of shows,
That's
and
pretty
sometimes the
ballsy for her to
Tourette's.
even get up and say something to him. That's
But after interaction, like he's gotten more people with Tourette's, and it's
yeah,
super funny to like when someone does a has a tick at the right moment in a comedy
yeah,
show can be
pretty
absolute
funny.
gold. Yeah, and he's had a couple of them. But his shows like his recap, like the videos I see on TikTok of him are super funny. And
Yeah.
he's a very young, he's like 20 some like 21 maybe.
Well,
Um and I think he's a great comedian. I think he's super funny. He does great with the audience. He's self-deprecating, and but he has great like regional jokes throughout Austria that I think relate to the U.S. a lot because there's those same kind of regional interplays like city folk versus country
right.
folk, or like you dating your cousin, like that's still a thing in both Australia and the U.S. Or
Well, see,
you're
that's where
working
you
at
need to just tie
Mackey's.
in the two. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like he's a great follow on social media and checking him out. But I think
Well,
he'll grow to be a
yeah.
big Australian comedian.
There is a guy. I was trying to think of foreign comedians that made it in the United States. I couldn't really think. There was one guy that I remember. I didn't think he was that funny, and I don't even know if he's still around. Russian, and you would remember his name because of the vodka. Yakov Smirnov. You ever hear of that guy?
Never heard
Yeah,
that name.
yeah. He's during my day, so probably in the '80s, and I don't even know if he's still around, but he would be an old comedian that made it. So
Yeah, so I'll mention I think this last comedian I'll mention because this is I think the second comedy show I went to after you took me to one when I was younger, in
was that the
Sacramento,
Carl's?
the
Carl's?
Carl show.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the second comedy show I saw was at Virginia Tech when I was going to school there, and it was um 2014 or something, 2015 maybe. It was a while ago, and it was with a comic Qasim Yusuf. I don't know if
Oh,
you've
I've
heard
heard
of
that
him.
name. Yeah,
So
yeah. He's a Middle
he's
Eastern guy.
grown a lot.
Yeah.
This is I think before he became real, like has grown to the level he is now. He's an Egyptian comic who is also a doctor. He's got a medical license, surgery, um, and he's coming from Egypt, right? You know,
Yeah.
a nation, Islamic, Muslim majority, very conservative values, and you know, comic in that kind of culture, it's tough, right? But
Yeah,
he
because you can't.
is, yeah,
Hilarious.
he does he does comedy and political satire and comedy about his culture and where he's born. I think you know it has. I think it's gotten him in trouble in you know his home and stuff.
Hmm.
But he, you know, I think he's not only funny. His show when I went through it was very funny. I think he's very inspirational in what he does. He does a lot like to help kids and to help his like the society that he grew up for, democracy. Um, he does. I think he's yeah, like I was saying, he's not just a great comedian. He's an activist in what he does.
Right.
He was also on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, like helped him grow his like helped grow Bassem's platform and everything, and grow what he was speaking out to. So he was on the Daily Show. He's good friends with Jon Stewart now. Um, but I think you know he's one of those like comics that kind of transcends the comedy into
Yeah.
like what he does as a comic, making fun of situations like that opens and sheds a lot of light onto like issues around like you know he's speaking to specific issues where he's from and his culture, but a lot of comics you know do make fun of that. I think Jon Stewart's a good example, and I love that he's an advocate for like soldiers and 9/11
Yeah.
victims. Like he
No,
does a lot
John.
of that stuff,
I don't agree with
and
Jon Stewart on a lot of stuff, but I do think he's funny and he's sincere, is what I think comes across.
yeah, and I think to be honest, I don't agree with like you're saying all the things Jon Stewart does, but I think Jon Stewart would be great in political office, like at a high level.
I don't know
I
about
think
his
he
policies. That's
there's
like
some
saying Bill
stuff
Maher too.
obviously.
Bill
Yeah,
Maher
but
is very controversial, but he's got common
I think
sense too.
there yeah, I think there's some guys in this level their comedy I think does would do great things for like
Well,
at
look
that
who's
kind of level,
leading Ukraine.
political level. Yeah, yeah,
A
comedian, an
comedian I had
actor
never heard of
comedian.
until he became president of Ukraine.
Oh yeah,
So
after he was president of Ukraine on a comedic television show, he became the
not so
real
funny
president of
anymore,
Ukraine.
but appears to be doing a great job and you know
That I
keeping
think
his.
that was like an example I think is of like why someone like Jon Stewart or of his type of character could be valuable and like there's
Yeah, I would
I
have
like
to. I could see voting for him, but I would have to really know where he stands on things. Like a guy like Dennis Miller, I think I know where he stands on a lot of stuff. I don't agree with it, and I would vote for him. And again, he's so intellectual, and I think you're right. Jon Stewart and Dennis Miller are kind of on that same plane
yeah
as far as comedy. They are intelligent
these comics
guys.
that yeah are intelligent but know like the fact that they are able to make fun of these like joke about these things but they have some like reasons behind it and have this like intellectual value to it I think is super valuable and I think it would be good on a political platform where they could
Yeah.
influence
Whereas somebody like a
that
Louis
level
C.K. or Bill Burr, not going to get my vote. Funny as hell,
or
but I'm not going to get their vote.
what's Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah. No,
He's
oh, I
one of
forgot
those
about
too.
him. That's old school. Hey,
Yeah, he's yep.
since you're in Europe, kind of close to the old Eastern Bloc, there is an American actor, comedian. I think he first came to fame as like a Middle Eastern rapper, the Borat guy.
Sasha Baron Cohen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is he even, I don't even know, is he known in Europe?
he's known worldwide.
Oh,
He's
he is a
known for his
global.
roles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I don't know if people
Borat, the
know his like
movies made
main.
fun of basically the
Yeah, that
Moldavias of the world, Romania, the Eastern Bloc countries, you
the
know,
like area around like Turkey and like this that general area, both the Middle Eastern and the European like
Eastern Europe, Eastern, yeah,
Christian Catholic side.
yeah,
Like that general vicinity. I think Borat kind of made fun of. Yeah, Turkmenistan,
yeah,
like those countries. And I'll be honest, in the current right now, um they're very like the spark a spark could set those places on fire because there's a lot of places in that general region that are on edge right now that I think a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
Americans don't know about. Um, like there's old, very old crises that are, you know, currently a small spark could set them off.
yeah.
Like the Serbia Kosovo,
Cro- Ser-
the
yeah.
Azerbaijan Armenia one is a very dangerous one right now. Like they
Well,
are
the
very
Armenians
close,
and the Turks. That's a historic cultural battle that goes back, and I
and
don't even
that
want to get
like
into
that
it.
area, given like Turkey's influence, a NATO member, as well as Russia's influence in that area,
Yeah,
it's like it's a very dangerous area, and it's but there's a lot of these countries that have these like ongoing kind of stalemates, not stalemates, but um, ceasefires that you know
how
are
did we
kind of
segue from comedians into
yeah
geopolitical
yeah geopolitical stuff.
controversy? So
But it's just yeah, it's just like this. But there's that's where comics come in. I think that's where comics are great and their influence is great.
that's
They
why I
can
would
make
love
light
to
of these
see.
situations.
Yeah, I'd love to see more Middle Eastern comics because I think you need to laugh at yourself, and you know,
There's it's me too. You say that because there are certain cultures I think produce great comics outside of the English speaking cultures, but in that go into English speaking comedy. Um, India, I think produces hilarious comics. Indian
I do
comics, I think, are
too.
super funny.
The whole
Um,
Bollywood scene is funny. Just I know they take it
K-
seriously, but it is funny.
Korea,
Koreans,
fantastic
yeah,
comics.
yeah.
Um, what there was another one I was.
I'm trying to think of
Um,
a country that doesn't.
well,
I don't really
there's
get
like
any
they like
German
set them.
comics. I can't think of a
That's
German
a
comic.
that is an oxymoron. Like that is
Yeah,
not a thing.
no offense to any Germans out there.
Oh,
Uh,
they I think yeah, I wouldn't
I,
know.
Italian,
But like
I can see funny Italian guys.
oh dude, that
French,
reminds me of
eh.
um the Italian chef. Oh my god, what is his name?
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, that's
That
funny.
I had put you onto this show recently with Gord
Yeah, where they travel
Gino.
around the threesome.
Yeah, Gino De Campo.
Yeah,
he's a,
I
he's
gotta
a
admit he was
chef, but
funny.
he's like a comic. He is
Yeah,
hilarious, just because he's so Italian and
it's
speak of
funny
it
though
like
that
this, and
we're talking
but
about
he's
it,
just
trying to talk about comedians, and we go to Italy and we actually have a chef.
yeah. But
So
that's Italy,
definitely a
right?
food
Everyone's
culture.
a
Yeah,
chef, but he's like a comedy or a comic, but also a professional chef. But
especially teaming in
um,
with Gordon Ramsay, who nobody thinks is a comedian.
they have a show. If you don't know, I can't remember what it's. Gordon's
Travel.
road trip or
Yeah,
something.
there's a third
Um,
guy. He's an Aussie, right?
he's
Or
French. No, he's
French.
French.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right. He
yeah.
was
It's
funny
it's
too.
a British Gordon Ramsay, the Gino De Campo, and Fred, Fred something. But he's
Which is pretty
he's
good because you got
French.
kind of the French known for being stuck up and into their elitism as far as French food. And then you got the Italian that, you know, Italy's got great food.
Spain.
Then you got, yeah, then you got a Brit
Gordon, who's
that's made it in the U.S. that has, and he admits, he says there's no place for food. The U.S. is just so much food. So,
but yeah,
but that's a
their
culinary
first
show.
season. It's a culinary show, but it's also like a comedy show. And I'll just say
Yeah.
this real quick to that. I think it's one of the funniest shows I've ever watched. I couldn't stop laughing at. But they do it a European road trip version, super funny. But I think their second season, their American road trip, is even funnier, and I highly suggest it for anyone. Gordon, Gino, and Fred. It's just called Road Trip, and one of the funniest parts because I remember us going there. They were in Texas. They went to this famous boot shop in Austin, Texas. And when they walk
Yeah.
out with their cowboy outfits, Gino walks out with leather chaps and no pants, and it's
Yeah.
just his naked butt.
Yeah.
But super funny watching.
Though I got to
Some
admit,
powder.
I really enjoyed that show, and I was hesitant because uh, I get tired of watching with your mother the cooking shows.
Yeah,
But
Nordengrams
since
another
we're talking
TV
about
show, but
comedy and TV shows, and I can't remember their names, there's the British guy, Travels with My Father, and I
Jack
can't remember
Whitehall.
that. Jack Whitehall and his dad are hilarious because you talk about a straight man. His dad is it and very British. And then there's an American show that isn't on anymore. It was only on, I think, 2 or 3 seasons. It might come back. And it was four guys: Terry Bradshaw, Henry Winkler, George Foreman, and
I don't know the name, but I kind of remember the show.
that's a hilarious show
That
traveling
was
around
just
the
like,
world.
yeah, that was just like these four old American dudes. It's just like
Yeah,
that was actually that is a great example of British
America.
banter. I think
It
like
was
I know they're
hilarious.
American, but like that is everyone in England to
Yes.
me. Like
I'm sure that show was a hit in Britain. It had to
they
be because it's
bantered so hard. It was so funny, and that's like it was so great because they could go back and forth at each other constantly.
who was the
And I
fourth
think that
guy?
is oh god,
George Foreman, Henry Winkler, Terry
Terry
Bradshaw.
Bradshaw.
I can't. I can't. I give up.
I'm looking up right now.
And there was a young guy that was a
Better
comedian.
late than never is a show. It
That's what it was
was
called.
William Shatner.
Oh God, who I'd met on a plane before. That's they're the
And then
celebrity.
Jeff Dye was the like the
Yeah,
young guy. But yeah,
because
so
you got
they're
four guys totally opposite from the stage. You got William Shatner, a Shakespearean actor who became famous for Star Trek, and gave me a drink on a Southwest flight. He was doing a
Terry
Star
Bradshaw,
Trek
a
convention.
football player,
Terry Bradshaw, the
Pittsburgh
stereotype of the dumb
Steelers.
football player, and George Foreman, a boxer who was very quiet, reserved, and then Henry
Henry Winkler.
Winkler,
It's
a Hollywood
another
left
actor,
liberal
just
guy,
comedian.
but they were funny as hell and
But
so
I think
different.
they bantered so back and forth well, and that's what made them so good. But I think that's what is so like British people in general do that, where like Americans don't have that level.
But
Another
see, I
show
think
that
actually that show would play well even in Austria, Germany, Spain, Portugal,
yeah
because it plays to the stereotypes of
the
America
Americans
and traveling in Europe and around the world. What was it called
yeah
again?
better late than never.
Better late than never. Bring that back,
12,
Henry.
12 episodes, 2 seasons. I
Yeah.
think they're too old to travel.
I know
But
Henry's still good. Shatner's getting up there. He's older than people think. He's
yeah,
up there.
but
Um,
the other show that I think defines that banter back and forth too. That's again not a comedy show, but just because of their personalities. Top Gear,
oh yeah, love Top Gear. Number one
Top
show in the
Gear,
world.
the original
Yes.
boys.
I've been watching the new
They
ones too. They're okay. Nothing's as good as the first.
but they're just that's just British personality in general, and that's why it's so funny. Like
But
those
they're
three guys
funny.
were like mates just
That
together,
was the
and they're
number
so
one
funny.
show
In
globally.
the and it's
So
a
it would
car show. It's amazing.
it combined maybe a guy thinking about it combined cars, stupid stunts like the jackass guys would do if they had a lot of money.
On
Cars,
a little bit more reserved.
yeah, different personality and jokes, and they all got and three very different guys. Those
But
are
they
three
all
guys I
got
would love to meet again.
they all got along so perfectly. That's why it made the show great. It
Yeah,
was the only reason that show worked, and you can obviously see it because none of the rest of the top tiers have worked since. Is because of those three together. Like
yeah,
they're so funny together. It's unbelievable. Like the
and I
way
can
they
almost
banter.
guarantee you who's the big guy.
Jeremy
Um,
Clarkson.
Jeremy Clarkson. Love you, Jeremy, but I bet if I met you in an airport, you'd be an asshole to me because I would be like,
I'd
hey,
laugh at it.
yeah,
It's
but
him.
I would, that's him. Whereas the other guys, I
And
think
like,
would,
wait, and we love his other shows. His farming show,
oh,
awesome,
I
hilarious
love
show.
that show. Not as
Yeah,
much as Top Gear.
great
All of them
show.
have had other shows, like the one for
James May in
Japan.
Japan.
All hilarious, but those three together on Top Gear, phenomenal. So very
Speaking
entertaining
of,
run.
there is a new the Grand Tour coming out with the three of them coming out very soon.
Oh,
So
really? I've been
looking
watching the
forward to
U.S.
that.
version of Top Gear too, just because I kind of missed it. It's not
Yeah,
as funny and as good, but it is what it is.
But
So
yeah, I'm looking forward to the next Grand Tour coming out soon. So
yeah, same here.
that'll be that'll be
So wow, we went from
another classic.
comedians to funny TV shows. So those
Well,
are our
we went from
recommendations.
yeah, we went from comedians to generational comedians to European comedians that I've seen to European geopolitical conflicts to comedians from other countries
Well,
to
yeah, I mean,
TV shows
before
and
we
chefs.
started recording, you gave me a hard time. You were shocked I didn't go see Joe McHale and
Ken
Ken
Jeong
Jeong because they
and
were right
D-list
down the
celebrity
road.
Robin Thicke
What's that?
and Robin Thicke.
He was with him
Yeah, he was there.
on the tour. Oh,
Yeah, I don't know if he's on the other tour. He was at the one in local to you.
oh, I didn't know that. So, I mean, I just don't. I like comedy in a smaller club setting,
Joe McHale's
comedy
pretty.
store.
You like Joe McHale though,
I
because
do,
he was
but
one
it
of
just
those guys
seems
that kind
weird
of
to
got
sit
canceled.
in an arena with one guy on stage. I got to admit, from a business viewpoint, if I'm an entertainer, I would want to, instead of having a band like, I don't know, Chicago or ELO, which you probably have never heard of, a big, gigantic band playing where you have to split the profits amongst 20 people. I'm a comedian
A
doing
single
one show at
comedian,
Madison Square Garden. I'm rolling in it.
and you're
So,
selling it online on your own special.
yes. Yeah.
So,
So, all right.
but yeah, I think this has been a fun one on comedy. I always I'll leave it at this. Go see a comic small show at your local bar.
Oh, and I
I
will
try and
say,
see a lot of them.
I did just, we're going to see a guy locally I've never heard of, and I'm not even going to look him up or hear about him. A guy named Greg Warren. He's playing at a local comedy club. Somebody wanted to go
I
near
will say you live near one I've come to learn is uh, a uh, a place where a lot of great comics have gone through and before they really launched. But the we've been to it before and we saw your friend there. The
Carl.
Laugh Factory in Old Sacramento
Yeah, yeah.
is actually very well regarded in the industry.
Well, the Comedy
Um,
Store, Laugh Factory. What's
so
there's a bunch
you're
of
at a
old clubs.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're in a good spot for them. Obviously, there's some big ones in LA and Vegas and everything, but
but social
um,
media has changed everything. So,
yeah, comedy on like TikTok and everything is a great way to find comics. That's how I found a lot of them, and now I go to their shows because I see
so,
them on TikTok.
but go
But
see them
yeah,
at your local comedy store. Support them. They need revenue.
yeah, especially post COVID where they couldn't do
Yeah,
anything, and we all know Zoom comedy shows did not do
yeah.
well.
No.
So with
All right.
that,
Till
one to
next time.
hear on this episode of about comedy across the world, and ended up about chefs and geopolitical conflicts as well. So that was interesting. Find us again on YouTube at Wits End, on TikTok at Wits End with an underscore, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.